Aloha and welcome to It Is All About Love. I'm so glad you have joined us this month. I have two fabulous guests. And the first guest I'm going to share with you is a woman I met through, let's see, planning weddings, I'll have to say. She was in the industry, as am I, and as we've gotten to know each other, she has grown beyond measure. And I'd like to introduce you to AKA, I call her Lorianne, but the community knows her as Lala, Lulu Ness. I'm so glad you're here with me today.
Thank you. This is fun.
You. I'm going to try out Lala because I met you on a professional level, and so I was always calling you Lorianne, which to me sounds very glamorous. And Lala is so warm and friendship building. So I'm going to go with Lala for today. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing right now.
Oh, what am I doing right now? Well, as far as life purpose, I would say about 2 years ago, I jumped off the cliff and started my own regenerative enterprise, as I like to call it, or my own company called Conscious Concepts.
Is that consciousconcepts.com? Could you find it that way?
It's actually consciousconcepts808.com.
Okay, great. So if you all want to find Lorianne or Lala, look for Conscious Concepts 808.com.
Got to rep the 808.
Yeah, wait, how did you get from the business world to this? What was the leap? What took you over the edge?
Good question. I had been in the tourism industry after I graduated from Manoa and traveled the world and worked on, cruise ships and private jet companies and the hotel industry and in Waikiki. And I think there was a tipping point for me in alignment of my values and passions, having traveled the world and come home with a different set of eyes, and wanting to be of service in a deeper way. And I didn't feel like I was necessarily doing that anymore in the mass tourism sector, but I had these skill sets. And I realized after coming home and getting much more involved in community development and place-based organizing, that the skill sets I'd learned in the corporate world were very applicable and actually really needed within community development. And it was in 2016 that I jumped off the cliff. And it really was, I'd say the tipping point for me was experiencing the transition of my mother and caretaking for her the last 6 months of her life, and being there right next to her, to her last breath, and the legacy that she held or holds for me, and how are we going to live our legacies? And that was like, I definitely didn't feel like I was living it working in the corporate tourism industry.
Yeah. I'd like to share this thought, and that is that working in the corporate travel industry or any work that lights your fire, as long as it lights your fire, is the right work to be in.
Absolutely.
And when it's not, that doesn't mean that it's not right. It's just not right for you, but it could be right for somebody else.
Absolutely.
So I have thought about that myself in dissing the world of all the jobs that I once had because I'm an entrepreneur. And I know that those jobs are needed, and there are people that absolutely love what they do.
Absolutely, and I did, and there was, for so many years, that's why I stayed in the industry, is because it fed me and nourished me, and I was lit up by it and was really good at it and in it and being a part of it.
And we never know really what we're being set up for, but when we have a movement like a transition of a parent or a family member or a friend that we deeply love, then all of a sudden there's this snowball effect of, well, am I making a difference in what I'm doing? And sure, those that stay in that work make a difference in what they're doing. Again, not dissing it, but there's also some of us, like yourself and myself, that are called. And when you begin to feel that nudge, it's scary, isn't it? I remember when you were in it, Lala.
We were, 40,000 feet, Waikiki. Being of service and providing experiences for our number one industry, right? And I loved it. I grew up in the tourism industry. My parents worked for Pan Am. They fell in love working for the airlines, and I was in my mama's tummy traveling the world. So it was second nature to be in that industry. And I'm actually engaging in it now in a different way. more from the community base versus within the industry, and it's really exciting to kind of move in a different space or a different relationship with that, say, sector or industry that raised me.
So I want to talk about love for a minute, and being able to discover that transitional moment within yourself, because we sat a couple times and talked together back then in those days, and I could feel you were ready to make a move and concerned about a variety of things, even though in my world the truth is we already know. I mean, I already know, and at the same time it's so uncomfortable. Just because I know doesn't mean I'm going to do something about it, right?
Yeah.
And you found your way through this web to what you've created today. So what were those steps like for you?
Ooh, that's a good question. I definitely would agree with you in saying we know before, a lot of times before we take action. I can reflect back on major decisions or shifts in my life, and my na'au or my intuition had known it previously, was getting ready for it almost. And the process was messy. It was confusing at times. It was exhilarating, and as well as, very fearful in other times. And
inspiring?
Absolutely. Absolutely inspiring. And it was kind of a back and forth, playing a little bit in that new space that you're seeing yourself going into, and then coming back to what you know. And that was for me. I kind of jumped in and out of the tourism sector into community development a few times before I officially stood and or jumped off the cliff and saw how well my wings worked, so to speak.
And there's a security factor in that, because in a career sort of job, I'm lumping those two thoughts together, in that kind of work, even though job security is not what it used to be, there's still a regular paycheck that comes that you can fairly well count upon.
Yep.
And when you're out there doing it for yourself, I mean, I've thought to myself, how am I going to get my electricity paid this month? And then I said, you just need to be creative, and something creative will show up, and the next thing I know, my electricity gets paid. I actually have some money set aside and saved, a small amount, but I'm working toward, I'm still working towards that. I'm still growing up. So those moments that help you over the hump to believe in yourself, I think there are all these divine moments where your business is called Conscious Concepts. And so let's talk a little bit more how you've blended that into what you're doing today and what that means to you. Where did that come from?
It originally came, actually, it's in honor of my mother. She, after the airline, she started her own company called Corporate Concepts, and ran similarly event production, project management, and kind of community liaison work, grant writing and community development type of sectors.
What was your mother's name?
My mom's name is Paula Zoe Helfrich.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Paula Zoe Helfrich.
She was a fireball. Sky's the limit. And I think that's why me jumping off the cliff was part of standing in my own legacy and my own heritage, and saying, looking back on Mama and seeing what she would have said, what she taught me, what was her breath, her ha, that I can continue to breathe in my lifetime. And that was really being take the step, have faith in it, and keep going. And I think you mentioned that as far as having faith in self and having this feeling and then taking action in it. That was something big that over the past even couple years, I'm learning how to be in love with my intuition and myself in ways that I didn't even realize sometimes were a challenge for me.
And if we don't do anything, we don't get anything.
Yeah.
We get the same old stuff.
I mean, life, I think, and existence is forever flowing, and we can see that in science and in nature. And, you look at, for example, water, what we're 60, 70, 80% made of water. And if we mimic that in nature, when water is stagnant, what happens to it, right?
Everything gets backed up.
Exactly. So the necessity to continue to flow, and pause as well, but definitely flowing in that space of creativity.
And with your business, Well, I'll just tell you all. I bumped into her several times, and that's why I'm like dialed her in for here. It's all about love. I'm like, you are all about love, Lala. I need you. I bumped into her at the Arts at Mark's Garage.
Yes.
What is your relationship with them?
Oh, man.
Downtown, Chinatown.
Yeah, Chinatown. Talk about love for a community and a neighborhood. I think the Arts at Mark's Garage. So my company provides project management, event production, and alternative travel programming focused on community development, really looking at it from the root versus, say, the outside perspective. And Chinatown, the oldest Chinatown in the U.S. is in Honolulu. And the history, the legacy even in that neighborhood. And within the past 16 years, Arts at Mark's Garage, the only nonprofit community art space of its kind.
16 years old already?
17, actually,
17?
this year.
Oh
17. And that's almost unheard of nowadays in nonprofit and then arts world of still being in
With
existence.
a store face.
Oh, we're on Nuuanu and Pauahi.
Yeah.
We have prime real estate and the only yard or only lawn in Chinatown, which we call it our grand lawn.
The little corner there,
yes.
yeah.
So I got involved and asked to come help about 2 years ago with one of the founding artists and director, Rich Richardson. And I had the honor of working under him and with him before he stepped away from his directorial role to go make tiny houses. He's still on the board. But the space itself encompasses love for internal and external relationship focused within creative realms. And the artistic lens of experiencing life and purpose and relationship, I think is something that anyone can relate to, and it's a neutrality that creates safe space. And I think urban core spaces like this, when we think of, say, sacred spaces, a lot of times we think of, going out to, in Hawaii, for example, going out to sacred temples or ancestral lands and looking at nature or water as sacred, which absolutely. How can we translate that in our contemporary times of sacred relationship and sacred spaces? And you look at urban cores, and when you can look through that lens of sacredness in the work you do in a seemingly very material world, it transitions, it shape-shifts the purpose and even the energy in which that place is existing, so to speak.
The feeling that I get when I come in the doors there is that if I never had a moment of being enlightened, or if I was dabbling in it or curious, that I could make some discoveries once I step through the doors there without going into maybe another sort of exhibit sort of arrangement where I might not know anything or feel like I have to be somebody. I mean, I'm just speaking for myself,
Sure.
not for anybody else. But the one thing that I love about the Arts at Mark's Garage is that anybody can step into it and feel a sense of wonder and awe because of the diversity that's between the glass and the walls,
Yes.
including the books.
Yes.
Tell us about the books.
So that's been a recent, last August, Arts at Mark's Garage had a huge renovation. And it was redesigning and opening up and rethinking the energy of the space. So with that, it was kind of the idea of breaking down walls and barriers and opening it up more to create energetic connectivity and creative collaborations. So with that, as Arts at Mark's reputation goes, it said, we don't have a bookstore anymore. And what bookstores represent in the contemporary times, right? It's a almost extinct place for community to come together. And the Friends of the Library, which is one of the partners now for Arts at Mark's Garage, was looking for a new location. And it was love at first sight. It just made so much sense to say, let's have that whole back wall just filled with books and vinyls and literature and handmade zine books, and the reaction from the community has been and was initially just beautiful. The first Friday that we launched it and had our community come in and enjoy the monthly art exhibition opening party, we had our bookstore, and at the end of the night we had to kick the book people out versus the people that are drinking and partying. It was like,
good news.
We'll be back open on Tuesday, guys. You know, if you want to put down the book, please try to head out.
Wonderful.
So I really like to look at relationship and being physically in that space and amongst that community, and seeing what the reactions are and how community responds to what we do in that space, because it's so diverse. And a lot of times people got to scratch their head and be like, so you're a community art space, what does that mean? What do? You have Shakespeare, you have, you know,
belly dancing,
Rocky Horror Picture Show,
Yeah.
you know, the Hawaii Watercolor Society, you know, Native Hawaiian Contemporary Art, which is coming up next month as well. So it's looking at neutrality and I think embracing love for all things creative and beautiful in whatever form, and that's what Arts at Marks. Yeah, possibilities. I think we need more of that. I'm feeling, especially in these times, that we need spaces like this more now than ever. Not that they weren't as important previously, but I think more and more we need to expand those concepts of unity and neutrality and love and creativity physically in the face-to-face form.
Yes.
With our beautiful modern-day technology, which has advanced us so far, there is a need and there is a seeking by community, whether it's visitors or locals, that are looking to have authentic, genuine, interactive face-to-face experiences.
We talked about this when you and I met a month or so ago, and that's the opportunity to engage without our device. The device, right? So how to engage without our device, like here we are together for 28 minutes and 30 seconds engaging without our device, even though I touched it.
Right.
You know, there's this opportunity to really connect with one another, and that's the beautiful thing about the Arts at Marks Garage is you could get engaged on any different level there.
Yeah.
Speaking of art, what's going on here? Tell me about this piece.
Well, you asked me to, if invited me to bring something that represents, I guess, me or this gathering, this connection between you and me today. And this actually, I think, reflects as is a representative of all the things that I am truly in love with and grateful for. This actually is a painting by my sister, Lulu Ness. I have my one and only sibling, my younger sister, and it, for me, represents the beautiful unfolding of relationship between siblings, and her as a teacher in hard times and in good, as far as loving each other and unconditionally. The essence of creativity and inspiration through the Aina, and, you know, honoring this place and the land. And I think growing up in Hawaii, especially being able to grow up in the land in many sense, I didn't grow up in the city. The relationship between who you are and the place that raised you is incredibly powerful. That culture, that understanding, and the importance that it holds in your life. Yes. This represents that because of what's being painted and the kind of majesty behind it.
As I was looking at this, I thought to myself, there are so many different ways this painting could be hung.
Yeah.
If it was turned the other way, it might be the desert with a thunderstorm coming across.
Interpretation.
Interpretation.
And the fluidity of what existence really is, right?
Yeah, and the blend of all the colors. They're all light and life.
Yeah, my sister, she's always been good with her hands as far as her creative niche. And you know, she's a chef, she's a photographer, and a painter. I didn't know she could paint until I came back home after being away for 8 years, and I'm already in my late 20s, about to be 30, and me and my sister are reconnecting in our home that we grew up in the first 11 years of our life. And I saw this painting, and it blew me away. And I remember the way it made me feel, and just had admiration for my sister, and the continued surprise of even those you think you know that well.
That's right.
And continuing that kind of surprise in life. Yeah.
You mentioned your mother's business was regarding the business element, and then yours is regarding the conscious element, which is really also business too, or everything. How did that word conscious concepts 808, how did that word become alive in you? Because I can feel the depth and passion of who you are and who you are becoming for yourself, and leaving a legacy of this patternese, or that's a made-up word, patternese.
I kind of like that, though.
I like
patternese.
Patternese, this patternese of who you are. It's really beautiful. And we become accustomed to certain people that have certain patterns that we love and like to be around.
Yeah.
The languaging and the conceptual ideas that they have. And so how did you shift, still staying connected to your mother's idea, but to the conscious piece?
Good question. And I actually started, I pulled out my business license in 2010. This was long before, my mother, we even thought my mother was ill at the time, right? So conscious concepts came to me then, and I didn't realize how powerful it was, and hindsight's 2020, years later, what that name really represented and how I'm going to move forward in creating a livelihood as well as living a purposeful life. And I think we're in a time for me where I see it important to start breaking down more of those linear false walls and separation between, say, what is sacred and what is business, what is material and what is esoteric. And for me, the Native Hawaiian culture had a really good grasp on that, the understanding the essence of sacred or purposeful life and spirituality, but the practicality and the functionality of that in the everyday material world, that beautiful balance. And I think taking my mom's entrepreneurial spirit with what she did so incredibly and eloquently in her successful business life in corporate concepts, and taking it or evolving it. Like, you look at generations, and every generation takes the last generation's mana or purpose, and I'm a believer in the divine design of you, the legacy that you continue to help evolve, that is appropriate to the times you're in. And I think for us in general, trying to be more conscious, whether we're making money or healing our bodies or seeking out, inspiration and why we're alive, or, the simple things of living a day-to-day life. Like, it's no joke out there. We're moving and shaking.
It's hard. It takes a lot. I was out with a friend yesterday, and he said, "Geez, June, I can't believe we've actually sat together for 3 hours, and this is wasn't all over the place."
Yeah.
It takes a lot to be still in today's world, because there seems like there's so much to get done, so much accomplished.
Yeah.
The one thing that I appreciate most about the Hawaiian language that I know is that the words have a definition that mean what it is. I've experienced that whenever I've gone to Google to find out the definition of a word, it means what it is. And then there's a poetry of some sort that's built beyond it or behind it that has a spiritual effect on me. Maybe that's why I've stayed here for 38 years. There's something that seems so much more real and deeply purposeful that is part of a consciousness that's part of Hawaii and our livelihood, and just that we have a state statute that says you have to be aloha.
Exactly. The value systems, right? For me, now more than ever, like, what are we really lifting up and evolving? And there's many things we can look at kind of in our mainstream world that's just ugly and toxic and challenging and depressing and confusing, and being able to say, I'm in Hawaii amongst an incredibly beautiful culture and value system that upholds and continues actually to expand upon what aloha really is, and the inclusivity of that. I have to honor that in as I continue to walk on this land and be supportive and be part of this community on a local as well as global scale. Like, the more that we can emphasize that in our examples and actions, I think just the more impactful we can be.
There's a sense of groundedness or home in not just the old, but those foundational or historical sorts of feelings. That's why we have the Iolani Palace, or things that we can go revisit, or museums that hold this history of a Picasso or something like that, or where we tell stories, or we have storytellers. And I just, it's a lot to think about. You and I could go on for hours and hours and hours. We didn't even talk about travel and conscious travel.
Right.
And we could be off to the races. Yes, Lorianne, Lala, and I are going to be working on a workshop to get all kinds of you off to Europe, South America, Asia Minor. I don't know. We're going to figure it out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I have just a few more minutes. How can I support you? And what can we do to support you and who you are and your business and the Arts at Mark's Garage, or anything? What would be the number one thing our audience can do for you?
Wow. I always have a hard time answering that.
Just ask for what you want.
Yeah. I think I would love to share a message of our community as a collective and individually really take the time out to observe and incorporate the wealth that we have amongst us. I think we're always being pushed kind of in the mainstream to say, you know, it's out there. You know, the wealth and what you want to do is always kind of just a little bit farther away than what you can reach. And I would say, I would beg to differ. Let us kind of sit back, go within, and look within ourselves, and then our families, and then our communities, and allow that to ripple outwards versus seeking these outwardly elements to think of as finding your wealth and your happiness and your love.
So you're asking the audience to be present with what is.
Be present with what is, support. I think the more that we can encourage and support our localized entrepreneurs and artists and endeavors and Aina-based initiatives, I think the better and stronger we can all be.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
To find Lala, it's consciousconcepts808.com. You can always root her up at the Arts at Mark's Garage. I've seen her there a couple of times. And
Yes.
she'd be happy to give you a tour or a visit, or talk about maybe you need a place to have
Hang
an
out.
event, or
Do some work.
hang out, do some work. It's a beautiful, beautiful spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And there's plenty of muni parking all around.
Yes, for $4. So there is parking in Chinatown. It's not that bad.
It's not at all.
And it's worth it.
Yeah. Lala, thank you so much for being my
Thank
guest on the
you.
show. I'm so grateful. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Don't go away, because we've got another special guest.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Aloha.
Aloha, and welcome to It's All About Love. I am so glad that you're here with me today. I have a really unique guest. And the reason why I say unique is because on rare occasion do I meet somebody that just I feel an immediate connection to. And this is the way I felt when I met Dr. Kim Kelley. She and I happened to be at a Speakers Bureau Association meeting, and somehow she slipped into her chair, and while I was busy listening to the speaker, I looked at her and she was kind of getting herself situated, and we shared a few words. And the next thing I knew, I felt like there was something about her that I needed to know more. And after a quick chat, I discovered that she had written a book most recently called The Road to Mana. And so if you're not familiar with Mana, we're going to learn all about it, including myself, and Dr. Kim will share about herself. So thanks and welcome to the show. Kim, may I call you Kim?
Please do.
Great. I'm so glad that you said yes, and I know it was a rather unusual and impromptu invitation. At the same time, when you mentioned your book and I felt your energy, I thought to myself, coming from a somewhat metaphysical background with my father in medicine, I said to myself, I need to know more. And so tell me, are you a local girl? How long have you been on the island? Where did you come from? And how do you know about Mana? Give us a heads up.
I consider myself local now. I'm originally from Ohio, but I've been in Hawaii for about 15 years. I had a midlife change, and that's what brought me to Hawaii. And so I've been here ever since, and I call Hawaii my home now.
Beautiful. So from Ohio, did you check out any other places, or was
No.
it I'm going as far as I can to where it's warm and no fog?
That's about it. That's
Yeah.
about it. Yes,
Yeah.
I did.
And did you bring your medical practice here with you, or tell me about your medical practice and how you found yourself in the writing arena?
Sure. So, as I said, I'm from Ohio. When I was in elementary school, I've always known that I wanted to help people. I always knew that I wanted to be a physician. At that time, I thought it was an ophthalmologist. When I was in third grade, you have those vision tests, and I realized that I couldn't see, but I didn't know that. And so when I got my first pair of glasses, like, oh my God, this is amazing. I can see everything. It's very crisp, it's very clear. And so I wanted to be able to help people like that. And so as I transitioned, I wasn't quite interested in ophthalmology, but I still was interested in medicine and helping people. Mm-hmm. So as I matriculated through undergraduate and medical school, anesthesia was it for me. And so I'm an anesthesiologist. I've been practicing anesthesia for almost 30 years. And I do pain management, I do acupuncture, I do all sorts of things. I do simulation in addition to my anesthesia responsibilities. What I've discovered, though, in helping people, because they're very vulnerable at that time when they're coming for surgery, very, very vulnerable.
I had an experience with one of you once.
Share.
It was on the day of giving birth.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
I was your best friend, wasn't I?
Like, give me one of those shots right now. I don't care. I mean, I need to relieve the pain. And then you have to bend over a certain way, and I can't even imagine how you would even know where to put the needle in the right spot with all that's going on, and with a baby that's moving and a spine that's moving, and all the other experiences you've probably had.
Yes. Well, I never travel alone. I always take a higher power with me.
Beautiful.
And that's what I know has served me in my career.
So from, and this is crazy, but from anesthesiologist to acupuncturist, clearly you're a specialist with needles. I mean, it's almost like a done deal, right?
Better give than to receive.
Yeah, better to give than to receive. But the knowledge that you have as an MD in the profession that you have is probably quite comforting for those that come for acupuncture.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the way that it happened was I'm Western trained, and most of our education is, the model is pharmaceutical based. It's a pharmaceutical based model. And what I've come to know for myself is that that may not always be the correct way, and that we have power within us to heal ourselves if we learn how to tap into that power. And so as an anesthesiologist, being on the end where patients are at a very, very, very vulnerable point in their life, having to go under anesthesia, being afraid, I thought, well, maybe is there a better way that they don't even have to go under? Can they learn how to heal themselves? And so that's where I began to delve into more of the Eastern modalities, the massage, the mindfulness, the breath work, the yoga, the nutrition. All of those things are critical in how you heal and how you live.
Did that unfold for you upon hitting the sandy beach, or was that something that you felt moved to prior to your departure from Ohio?
So I was moved. I was leaning in that direction, but not really knowing where to go with it or how to explore it more. As I said, my practice basically is pharmaceutical based. When you go to a physician, oftentimes you're going to be given a prescription for your ailment, at least in Western medicine. Oftentimes. We are now trying to change, but years ago I realized that wasn't quite, it didn't work for me. You know, when I had my challenges, I didn't want a medication. And then what I have come to know is that if you look at the statistics, we're not doing so well in terms of chronic diseases in our Western-based medication. And I just think if that's not working, then we need to shift a little bit. And I think the general lay public agrees with that too. And that's why more and more insurance carriers are beginning to cover those non-traditional approaches, complementary medical therapy modalities, because we know that what we've been doing certainly isn't working quite as well as it should be.
So on your transition to, was Oahu your first and only stop, or did you check out the other islands as well?
No. The way it happened was my oldest son was actually I thought that I would retire in Hawaii. We would vacation here many, many times a year, and I thought, oh my goodness, I want to retire in Hawaii. Well, as it turned out, I didn't retire. I was had a midlife change and decided to come over here sooner. And so my oldest son was at the University of Hawaii because he too wanted to be a part of this wonderful, fantastic, magical place. And so he was in undergrad and then joined the reserve. And when he joined the reserve, he got activated and deployed. And so I wanted to be a part of that before he left because I knew that if he got deployed, if he were injured, he'd come back to Tripler, the medical facility here.
Yes.
And I wanted to make sure that I could be a part of that. If there was something that happened, I wanted to be available to him. I couldn't be available to him back in Ohio. And as I said, I've always loved Hawaii. It's a very magical, mystical place. And so that's one of the reasons why it was specifically Oahu.
Beautiful. So you already felt the energy of what was being held here.
Absolutely.
Oh, got it.
Absolutely.
Got it. And did you, were you in your practice long before you felt the stronger pull towards a natural form of medicine, or what I like to say even is the metaphysical part of healing?
Well, I think so. So the way it worked is I thought that I wanted to help people. I wanted to heal people. I didn't, as I matriculated through the system, I was busy working, but not really getting an opportunity to enjoy, patient interactions. And I wanted more of that.
Got it.
And so that's sort of the reason why I sort of transitioned to more of the holistic approach, because it's not just one disease entity. Yes, they may be taking out your gallbladder, but what else is going on?
Right. And when you say I wanted the opportunity to heal people, the difference in my understanding between the allopathic world and the naturopathic world, being the modern medicine world and herbs, is that our minds are so powerful that if I could heal my mind, what if I could heal my body?
Absolutely.
So if to think is to create, what am I absolutely creating?
That's correct.
I have a personal challenge of my own.
Sure.
I was adopted at birth.
Oh.
And I discovered my biological mother about, I think it's been 7 years now, 7 years ago. And I didn't want to know in this discovery anything about her health issues, if she had any, because that's not what I wanted to know. I wanted to know why I looked like I did, why my skin was the way it was, why my hair was so white, why my nose looked like this, why my eyes are greener, stuff like that. All the surface stuff. Because I've kind of lived that butterfly lifestyle. I've been happy all my life. And when the agency said, well, there were 2 medical issues posted in this year and that year, would you like to know? And I said, no, that's not what I was wanting to discover. Well, in the end, I did discover that she'd had breast cancer and had a mastectomy. And through that, I've learned about the BRCA gene and a few other things. And so in my mind's eye, I was in perfect health until this thought came into my awareness of what do I need to do now about this vehicle, this thing called June? And how do I keep that away from my thinking but still allow a sense of awareness in? But what's become more powerful is my willingness to look at faith and transformation.
Absolutely.
In the here and now and in whatever is to come. And that makes me think about the word mana and the title of your book, which I know is to be power, or mana, or power. So maybe we could segue a little bit into how you came into writing a book and what is in this masterpiece of yours.
Thank you. It is a masterpiece, if I say so myself. So the road to mana, I was looking for something for people to have energy, to have power, and to take that power within themselves. Oftentimes, we turn that power over to another person, a physician, if you will, or another healthcare professional. And I don't think we need to do that. I think the power is within. And learning and knowing that you have that power, number one, the awareness, and then having tools to tap into that power. So I wanted to tap into the power and know that we all have mana, particularly here in Hawaii.
We already have a nudge up. We've got like a boost of spirituality here.
We've got it
that's
all.
Natural.
We've got it all.
Yes.
And so in the book, I'm trying to share a little bit about what we have in our own backyard with others who may not be able to come this far to visit with us, but just to know that you still have it, no matter where you are. It still resides within you. You were born with it. Just trying to figure out how to tap into that. So I have read lots of books in my days, and I really don't like to read books, long books, and so I wanted a book that would be more interesting, more interactive. And so basically the book is about 5 healing modalities. We deal with massage, we deal with nutrition, we deal with mindfulness, meditation, and we also deal with yoga. And those are the tools, at least that have helped me in my life, get from point A to point B and help me to live a happier, or be in a happier place. And so that's why I wrote the book, The Road to Mana. And each healing modality, each of those 5, actually, it's told through a story. We like to tell stories in Hawaii. We like to talk story.
We like to talk story, that we do.
And so in the book, we talk story in the book, and it's basically about 5 characters who come to a retreat, and the retreat happens to be on the Big Island. And there is a real road to Mana. It's actually sitting at the foothills of Mauna Kea. And this sister, if you will, this caretaker of this retreat, has a very holistic approach to health and healing. And so these 5 characters come from various walks of life with various problems: burnout, PTSD, compassion fatigue, grief, all of those kinds of things, and she deals with them. And so in a very engaging way.
It feels like the making of a movie.
Well, thank you.
I just had this vision.
Thank you.
I mean, if you said Mana Road, or you were looking for it, and you ended up on the Big Island in, did you say Waimea?
It's out.
In Waimea, so it's in Waimea, right? The Big Island is a growing island.
It is.
And it has mana, it has power, and it is, I mean, clearly, I think just about everybody knows there's a little explosion going on over there, right? Yeah, and rumbling and so on and so forth. Sure. And then, of course, you have these green hills up in Waimea and that side, and it's the peace that sometimes is needed, and sometimes it's explosion that has to happen. I was looking at your brochure here, Core Wellness Hawaii, and it made me think about those 5 pieces to the puzzle, and the core strength of our middle body, or the roots that hold us in place that we can check in. And I love this name, Core Wellness Hawaii. And if you can see this card, she's got a variety of photographs, and it looks like somebody meditating along the shoreline.
Yes, New Year's Day.
Is that you?
That's a good friend of mine. I was taking her picture. New Year's Day, we were there.
Absolutely beautiful.
So what core, and you're correct in what you mentioned about core, and that's what we wanted to show in Core Wellness. It actually all begins in your core. No matter if you're running, it's core work. If you're biking, it's core work. If you're swimming, it's core work. And if you're living, it's all about the core. And so that's what I wanted to stress, Core Wellness Hawaii.
I love it.
Thank you.
So where are you on this journey with your book? Are you getting speaking engagements lined up? Are you talking to people of your own profession, or the natural wellness arena? Or how can we support you? How can I support you?
Thank you very much, June. So right now the book just came out in July, and it's
so I just met you right after it came out.
You just met me right after.
I love it.
Yes, and it's already an international bestseller. So we're very excited about that. We are booking for our speaking engagements, and we are filling up, which is great, because the book actually is a calling card for me. It allows me to get out and kind of talk a little bit more about what I enjoy doing and what truly I'm about. And so, yes, we're very excited.
That's so neat. When I think of a needle, I think of something that's like, it's almost like a double-edged sword. It's sharp and it helps. And we need to pay attention.
Yes.
And so something like this, the road to Mana, is a wake-up call saying, all right, so what is the road? And do people that not know ask you about what does Mana mean? Are you invited to describe that word? And does it bring more, gosh, I guess I'm thinking of more people to Hawaii in order to understand what Mana is?
Yes, I think a lot of people don't know what Mana is. I think sometimes we do. In Hawaii, it's a part of our culture, understand what that means. When someone read it, they thought, oh, well, is it marijuana? I'm like, well, it could be. So.
Wow, neat. Very neat. And so I understand that you're getting ready to make a move out to the west side.
Yes.
There's a lot of magic happening out there as well.
There's a lot of magic happening out there.
It made me think about those properties out there, some of the tourist properties out there, and opportunities to connect with hotels and work as a guest speaker on the circuit out on the west end of the island. And also there's Waianae Comprehensive out there, and I'm sure they could probably use support out there. And I sometimes feel like the outerlying areas are more open to alternative conversations. Would that be true?
I think that is true. And one of the things we do at our retreats, actually we're a very mobile service. We don't really have a brick and mortar, but we take our company on the road, if you will. And so we'll come to your place of employment and we'll give our retreats there during your lunchtime or in one of your conference rooms or whatnot. But more than that, I believe Mother Nature has the key to help us, to cure us. And so we like to do everything in Mother Nature, be it a hike, be it on the beach, preferably on the beach because that's my love. But we're outside. I don't like being indoors. I mean, I'm in indoors all the time, but I think the real healing, the knowledge, the power actually comes from outside, and that's what we have to tap into. You get grounded when you're walking in the sand. It's meditation when you're swimming in the ocean, when you're hiking, the greenery, the trees, all of those things, the birds, all of that. That speaks to us if we're aware, if we listen, if we breathe. So.
That made me think of something else when I thought of the west end of the island. So I am pretty Caucasian.
That's okay.
I've been this way all my life. Is the last I know. I mean, I've been living like this for a long time. And some people have said to me, gee, June, how do you do it? I mean, you're so howly, you're so white. And I have said, I didn't notice. I mean, I noticed that my hair is white, but what my point is that there's a way of blending. And I think it's part of what we call aloha.
That's correct.
And when I look at you, I think they probably think you're somebody's auntie because you look like a local girl. And that's a great bonus when you think about it, because it's one less hurdle to leap over when you're wanting to really touch people and move and inspire them in their lives for healing.
So one of the things that I realized, and I share it with some people, so my soul, your soul, doesn't have a color. It's not
this
black
is just the outer
or white.
surface. As far as I know, we have the same inside stuff going on.
Exactly. Yeah. And so people can tap into that. They see that. They see your beauty. They see your heart. And that's what's very attractive and very magnetic. And
I never thought about it like that. But I definitely know that we all have the same stuff on the inside. Definitely. Oh, beautiful. And so as the time has gone by, now that the book has been out, let's see, we're just a couple of months into this. Are you planning on doing some book signings? And how can I support you? What do you need from me or from the community? Because, like, if you want speaking gigs, look, everybody, we need to get her booked. We need to get her booked on the neighbor island.
Neighbor islands, all over. I do it all. Young people, folks interested in medicine from the Western perspective, and now that I do the Eastern perspective, we bring it all with Core Wellness Hawaii. And so that is the beauty of our organization. We can look at both pieces. So give me a call. Go to our website, corewellnesshawaii.com. Our phone number is right here, 808-426-6436. Give us a call or check us out on our email.
Definitely. I think that's important, that a call to service, because there are people that watch. I mean, on occasion, somebody will say, aren't you the lady on the Olelo show? They'll see me in the supermarket, and I'm like, that's me.
That's me.
And so we never know whose lives we're going to touch. And that's why I feel it's important to ask for what you want. right?
Asking it shall be given.
Asking it shall be given.
Seeking you shall find.
Yep, there's a little biblical going on here, and just the truth of what it is, right? Gosh, there was one more thing I thought about. Oh, it's all about love. That's the name of this program.
Yes.
And I wanted to just talk about that for a brief minute or two, because
Absolutely.
what I see in your service and in your activity is that you're inviting people to discover new ways to love themselves
Yes.
through the power of the mana within. Would that make sense?
That makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
That is it.
Beautiful.
But for the number one cause of death in America is actually heart disease. And so we need to find ways to heal our heart. And it may be with medication, it may be with the surgeon's scalpel, but it may not be. It just may not be. And that's what we need to take a little closer look at.
I made a funny little remark the other day on my Facebook page. I said, I'm just going to say this, all right? I just said, what if the president made us all take our cell phones out of the car? We would all of a sudden have be forced into relationships with each other. We would actually, I had this list of little items, but my point was is that how could we get back into relationships so we didn't have to build walls, but we could break down the barriers and things like that, so that we wouldn't be dying of heart disease and we would be connected. And that's where you have moved from anesthesiologist work in particular into teaching people on how to heal themselves.
Absolutely. I'll just share briefly if I have a minute or two.
You do. We've got a couple more minutes.
In my practice, as I said, I do a lot of pain management. Patients who come to surgery, broken bones, those types of things. We use nerve blocks. We inject numbing medication to make the patient comfortable. So back in several years ago, when the war broke out, a lot of our soldiers were coming back injured, and so they had to have surgery, usually on their bones, broken joints, extremities, those types of things. And so we could do nerve blocks, and I was really proud of myself. Yeah, that's a perfect block, and the patient should be happy. And so we would do our rounds and realize, hey, how are you doing? Are you okay? And the patient, are you having any pain? No, my pain is fine. I'm like, well, what's wrong? What's the matter? And truly, what that person needed, not more morphine, not more Dilaudid, they needed a hug. And so as an auntie, I'll say, I was able to just say, look in his eyes, young soldier, about the age of my son, I said, you look like you just need a hug. And I just embraced him, and he just cried like a baby. And from that day on, I gave him a hug every day. And I believe, and he even mentioned, that made a difference in his care. So it's not always those things that we do. It's the simple things. It's the hug, it's the touch, it's the look. And so that's what I want to share, because oftentimes we're a little bit too sterile.
We're a busy world of that kind of contact. Let me text you. How can our viewers pick up this book? Is it on Amazon?
Absolutely. We are on Amazon, and the book, The Road to Mana, by me.
by her, not by me.
It's a great read. It's about 100 pages. Great read, lots of wonderful quotes, and it will give you some tips on how you too can heal and be a better person. So thank you.
Kim,
thank you so much, June.
It's been for
incredible.
the random invitation, and I just appreciate your flexibility and willingness to come in and share.
Absolutely, anytime.
I am very excited to read your book, and actually I have a friend outside the studio, and her daughter is talking about becoming an anesthesiologist.
Ooh, let's talk.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
For this 28 minutes. Ole Pilikia. It's my pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, June. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for joining the two of us, and I look forward to seeing you again. Aloha.
Mahalo.